Okay, now that we have our technical difficulties resolved, we have a live stream going of the service today. Some of Ray's family live out of state, and he has a sister in Oregon, and so she's watching us live. And we also have some family in Iowa, and just probably not anywhere else. Yeah. I would just start us off with a reflection in our daily VCQ. When we are confronted with difficult news or medical prognosis, we can naturally be filled with emotions like fear, disappointment, uncertainty, and anger. In times like this, how does my faith and relationship with God sustain me? If you will pray with me. God of strength, grant each of us the courage, faith, strength, and comfort we need to make it through times of darkness and uncertainty in our lives. Help us always trust in your care and presence in our lives. Amen. Thank you for coming today to honor Harold Ray Fullen, Uncle Ray to me. He was a very special guy, and we're going to honor him and share some funny stories and make it light as he would want it. Harold Ray Fullen, 79, of Anderson, passed away on November 8, 2023 at Ascension St. Vincent, 86th Street. He was born October 26, 1944 in Gromer, Indiana. He retired from Delco Remy Division of General Motors in 2000 after 34 years of service. He was a member and a committeeman of the United Auto Workers Union 662. He was also a ASA Grand Mark champion, Anderson Speedway track champion, classic car enthusiast. He loved to wheel and deal at auctions and swap meets. Ray is survived by his daughters, Michelle Fullen and Julie Fullen. His siblings, Natalie, John Bosley, Margaret Ann Walt, Marcella Lindley, Marilyn and Don Lehigh, Jean and Faye Fullen, Linda and John Sawyer, and numerous nieces and nephews. He was preceded in death by his parents, Ernest and Martha Fullen, and his wife, Rosemary Fullen. And we're doing a visitation in the services today. Michelle has an interesting article to read for you, and some stories that she wants to share.
Thank you, Jen. No one better to speak for him than you. And we appreciate you being here, and I appreciate everyone that came here today to see us. I really do. And yes, I do have a great article to share. The first thing I wanted to talk about, though, is something that every single person in this room, I think, today has told me. Your dad was a good man. Your dad was a great man. Your dad was a great guy. And I thought a lot about that because that's what everybody seems to say. And I thought, well, what does that really mean? You know, when you're describing him as a good man. Did that mean that he was a law-abiding man? Well, mostly. Did it mean that he was a moral man, a successful man, a religious man? What about him made him a good man? Well, what I truly believe made my dad, Ray Fullen, a good man was this. He truly enjoyed acts of service to others, and it made him happiest when he was helping his family. Nothing thrilled him more than having something to do to help someone else. He really enjoyed that. That's what made him happy. The act of doing that made him happy. He had the best time fixing things around my house, whether they needed to be fixed or not. He'd let me know. You need to fix that. He loved helping us find the best deal on cars so that we could have the best car that we could have at the right price. Always, and he did that just recently even with Julie, helping her get a car. He liked to be useful, but he loved to be needed. That's what he really loved. So of course he loved his family because we needed him. And my mother needed him, and I needed him, and my sister needed him, and his sisters, and his brother, and everyone did. And he really adored that and took that role very seriously, that he would help. Now, if he did come over to help you, you had better not think about paying him or trying to offer him any kind of money, because you didn't get a very good response when you tried to do that. Well, Ray, you've mowed the entire property here and, got the mail for 8 weeks. Oh, it's nothing. I don't need that. That's not what it's about. There's only one thing that he would accept in a trade for his services. I think you know what that was, Aunt Margaret Ann. Anytime she needed something done, well, I was thinking about making you a delicious persimmon pudding. I'll be right down. Now, did he ever say no to your persimmon pudding? No, ma'am. He was not a fool. So he always took those home with him. He had the very best time surprising his neighbors, friends, and family with acts of service. Some of the things that he really loved to do is he would snow blow and shovel your sidewalk if the flakes even started. He's got the snow blower out, revving it up, ready to go. He did Mary and Patty Jamerson's home for years and truly loved to get out there and get that snow blowed. I'm like, well, are you going anywhere today, Dad? No, just need to get that done in case we need to go. Might want to go somewhere. He loved sharing his fresh garden vegetables by the sackful. Unless he put them out front for free. And the last time somebody took his table. I apologize for cursing, but he was a little pissed about that. He was not thrilled that he was giving away tomatoes and somebody thought that he meant the table too. That's the last time I'm doing that. I think he just sat him out there in sacks going forward. He grew all kinds of tomatoes, more tomatoes than I think anybody even realized had that many varieties. And I know that he grew some extra cherry tomatoes for a couple of his favorite girls when they were young, Kylie and Kendra. He always made sure to bring them the cherry ones. I know he did. He loved that. He kept his eye on his neighbors' homes, their fish. He kept an eye on teenagers in the neighborhood that may or may not should have been around, mail and lawns. And he loved every bit of it. Every Christmas, Donna, Larry, we came down to your house, and every time we would just take a little tour and see all the new stuff that you'd done. He'd point it all out to me, and then he'd feed the fish and get your mail and off we'd go. But he always enjoyed doing that for you. There was a story from the blizzard of 1978, which is a way back, so apologies to some of you who were not exactly in existence at that time. But in the blizzard of 78, that's when everything shut down, basically, in Indiana for like 6 weeks or something like that. We know my dad was not going to stay in the house. So what does he do? Well, he gets out on the road, starts helping people. Getting them off the road, shoveling them out, pulling them out. Come across this Tyson chicken truck. It was buried. They're pretty good, I guess. And he stopped to help them. So they dug and dug, they had chains, they tried to pull him out, they couldn't get him out, they're trying to push him out. It took him, he had come back to the house, and Mom said, "Are you leaving again?" He said, "Well, yeah, I gotta go get that guy out. Can't just leave him up there." So he went and got what he wanted, went back, pulled this guy out. It took about 4 or 5 hours. About 2 weeks later, we got the largest delivery of chicken I have ever personally seen in my life. Huge boxes and boxes. They were so thrilled that they didn't lose their inventory in that. They couldn't believe that my dad stayed there long enough to get him actually out. So
The funny part is, at that time, my dad really didn't eat chicken. Unless it was mom's fried chicken, and he would eat that. But if you put some grilled chicken down there, he'd have been like, this isn't for me, right? This is somebody else's food, that's not mine. So we learned to love it. And I believe he adjusted well to having some chicken in his diet. My mom said if he didn't want the chicken, you shouldn't have helped him. Sorry about you. He would buy you any food or take you wherever you wanted to eat, if it was health, whatever was upsetting you, especially if you were a female in his family or under his care. If you get upset, can I get you some ice cream? Would you like to go out to eat? Do you need candy? Do you need a Coke? I can probably get you something that's going to calm the crying or make sure that you feel just a little bit better. He was very good about that. Imagine when he come to Charlotte to see us, his credit card company thought that there was fraud on his account. Because in Anderson, he goes mainly about 5 places. Menards and Myers and Walmart and the Anderson Grill, I think, was on there. That's about it. So when he came to our house, there would be like massive charges for going out to eat the entire time he visited. And they would be like, sir, I'm down here with my girls. Oh, okay, great, thank you, everything's fine. But he loved taking people out to eat. Always, and always would. Some of his acts carried a little bit of risk. I did come home from my work down in North Carolina one day, and he was visiting. He had gotten there ahead of me because he would say, well, I'm not gonna leave till probably 7 or 8. He'd get up at 5. Well, I was up, so I just went ahead and left. He's already barreled down there and been sitting. I'm like, come in, pull in my driveway. He's in my tree, up in the tree. And I said, what in God's name are you doing in my tree, sir? He said, well, some loose limbs up there. I got them. They probably would have been okay up there. Well, I was here, wasn't doing anything, so I just thought I would climb your tree and get your loose limbs down. Thank you, I guess, but you didn't really have to do that. So you never knew what kind of active service that you were going to get. And I would say that the way, folks talk now, that was his way of showing love to everyone, was an active service to someone else. It was maybe hard for him to say, I love you, or, him and my mom didn't really have romantic dinners or that kind of thing. It really wasn't their style. But he would always do something for you to show you how much he liked you. What also made him a good man, besides his active service, was that he was fair and honest in his work, in his negotiations, and his competition that he did. When I think about him, he worked a long time. And I know he always gave probably more than an honest day's work. He had a huge work ethic, huge. I believe he was fair in his negotiations when he did his wheeling and dealing. He enjoyed the art of that more than the win, I think, sometimes. He was respected both by his peers as well as his enemies, which is quite an accomplishment. Even all the people that, I spoke to over the years about his racing and, the heated competition that they had, they may have been mad at him a time or two or gotten into a dust-up or two, but they always had respect for him, that he treated them fairly. And again, was a good man. He's successful in creating his own family based on love and raised 2 fairly decent humans. It was his greatest joy that my sister and I graduated with college degrees. It was the only thing the man asked of us. Well, not entirely, but that was his goal, was to see his children graduate from college. He and my mom were in luck on that. He said, I will work, and he worked his whole life with his body, and he wanted us to work with our minds. And so we did, and I know that made him very happy to know that. We are a lot alike. Julie and I with our dad, we both have his practicality, as we have been very busy the last few days going through things. A good financial sense and a similar work ethic, which is sometimes to our detriment, and a good sense of humor. for all things with my father. He left a legacy in his part of the racing world with grit, determination, and a talent that I really loved watching. And I really did love to watch him race, even if he was my dad. He was a very talented driver, and I enjoyed that very much, even though it scared me a lot. And I probably smoked like 2 cigarettes back then watching him. But I did enjoy it, and I knew he loved it. He really loved it. He was greatly loved in his life, and he still is. Now we're going to get to some fun things. This is an article I procured out of his desk that my sister and I found quite intriguing that he would save and not try to get rid of it so that we didn't know. Here we go. Harold Fullen, you know he didn't like that, is penalized $342 on 8 charges. Local court activity in the area over the weekend was highlighted by 8 charges filed against a 17-year-old Orleans youth. Charged was Harold Ray Fullen. He was cited into court following a high-speed auto chase near Mitchell by 2 state police units. He was charged with leaving the scene of an accident, reckless driving, speeding, disregarding a stop sign, operating left of center, running with his lights off, failure to signal when turning, and disobeying a police officer. I'm pretty sure none of these would have flown if Julie or I would have attended. Different times. It goes on to state, police said that they spotted Fullen driving recklessly on State Road 60 south of Mitchell. They said they started to stop him, but the chase began. So I think he made like a choice where it was like go or no, and he went go. Pretty sure. It said officers reported that in the process of the chase, Fullen crowded one car off the highway, nearly ran down the state police cars as they pulled onto the highway, ran 3 stop signs, drove nearly 100 miles an hour with his lights off on State Road 37, and finally wrecked the 56 Chevy on a country road off 60 west of Mitchell. However, police said that after the auto was wrecked, Fullen took off on foot. You're not busting me today, I gotta go. The best part is said that they were unable to locate him. However, there was a second youth in the car. The second boy reported that he got into Fullen's car at a restaurant and then the chase started. You know, that kid was like, "You're gonna kill us! Stop, let me out." Well, the kid held on. He was so startled he stayed in the car, and they did not charge the other boy. It says officers were unable to locate Fullen Saturday night. However, the boy is what they called him. The boy did show up Sunday morning when he reported to local authorities. So he paid his fine and went about his day. But that tickled me to no end to see that. I can't believe he ran from a police line. But he did. So I assume he showed up at my mom's and probably told her maybe a version of what he might have done and went from there. But see, he just paid it and he went on. You know, that certainly would not happen at any time today. So some of the things my dad was rarely without: a mustache. Has anybody in here ever had the unfortunate experience of seeing him without his mustache?
Me, and I immediately said,
No. No. That's what me, Julie, and Mom were all like, okay, no. You look creepy and wrong, and you're going to have to grow it back. He was like, well, I really don't. And we're like, yeah, we're not asking. It's got to come back. It's just not the same. He always had a Buckeye in his pocket. And a lot of those Buckeyes came from his father. And I only talked to him into giving me one. And that's because I was in the hospital and he was afraid something was going to happen to me, so I kind of leveraged. So I said, "You sure you won't want to give me that Buckeye out of your pocket?" "Well, no, not really, but you need it?" I said, "Yeah, I think I do." He said, "Okay." He was rarely without a German Shepherd in his backyard. He had German Shepherds almost all his life. Always in the backyard, always out there hanging out with him in the garage. He always was there a time that he didn't have some kind of a badass vehicle or a race car around. He may not have been driving it at the time, but he had it. It was always there waiting for him. "Well, when you kids get to college," "Well, when I have more time and I'm not working 80 hours or 100 hours a week or whatever," you keep them around. And there is quite a few currently in his garage as we speak. My dad was rarely without a pair of jeans. I doubt that you ever saw him in anything other than a pair of jeans unless you were unfortunate enough to live in the 70s when shorts were a thing for a while. And you've seen a couple of those pictures of the shorts. Now I say, "Well, Dad, you can wear more comfortable pants." "Oh, no, I wouldn't wear that outside the house. That's wrong. Just give me my jeans." He was rarely without a job or 3 or 4. I remember he worked 3 different jobs when I was little. The best thing that he told me is recently we were in Orleans and we pulled up to a convenience store that used to be a gas station where he worked. And he was telling me, he said, "Can you believe they let a 15-year-old boy run this gas station?" I said, "Well, I can believe they let you as a 15-year-old boy run this gas station since you were pretty responsible back then, aside from the major law breaking on the road type of thing." But he was 15 when he worked there. He said he would go there after school every day and work there until it's time to go home. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. He almost always had a hat on, especially in the later years. If he was outside, he had his hat on. I think in the later times, it was 90% Menards hats. Not sure. He had an affinity there, but probably had a deal. 10 hats for something, he's probably all over it. "I got it. I'm good." Yeah, that's what he had on. He had on a Menards shirt. He always had a handkerchief in his pocket. He was a little bit old school that way and always had a handkerchief in his pocket. Some of his very, very favorite things. He absolutely loved the very first ripe tomato of the season, fresh out of the garden. He would tell me for a week, "Oh, I think it's coming. I can feel it. I'm going to be able to eat it tomorrow." And I love giving him so much crap because I don't like fresh tomatoes. And I was like, "Well, that's green. You should just cut that up and fry it." He said, "Don't ever say that to me again." He said, "Sometimes I'm not sure you're mine when you say things like that." He said, "You know damn good and well I want that tomato." So he'd wait until it got good, and then he would go right out in the garden. Ew, for me, but dust her off and dive in. Said it's the best taste of the whole year. Was that first tomato that he grew. He always loved it. He loved my mom's cooking, and then he also loved my Aunt Jim's cooking as well, because they were the ones cooking for him after that. I think he got quite a few leftovers from me, Jim, maybe 1 or 2. Big piles. He liked all and any fruit cobblers and pies. Loved them. I know how many you made for him. So many of the great pies. He loved cobbler, blackberry cobbler, but I don't think there was a fruit cobbler. He gave it to him. He loved the persimmon pudding with Cool Whip piled on. Best way. Best way. He also loved a restaurant where Julie and I lived called Shomar's. Just a little tiny Greek restaurant that served fried fish and some, a lot of other things, but breakfast. But he loved that place. Every time he came to our house, he wanted to go there to eat the fish. He got so comfortable there that he would go and eat breakfast there once we went to work. He'd just go down there by himself and eat breakfast. He loved that place. But the thing that usually made the biggest difference is he was always happiest eating with someone that he loved. So I'd call him, he'd say, "Well, I tried Culver's." well, that was shit. And I would be like, are you sure? God, it's pretty good. I said, but then if we would have went with him, he would have enjoyed it and liked it. And that was mostly whether or not he liked restaurants and stuff. If he was eating with someone or if he was forced to eat by himself, unless it was the toast of town. And he ate a lot of breakfast up there at the toast. He loved cats. He loved his silly cat Spencer. I don't know how many of you remember that cat Spencer he had. How many times he had to save that cat? 3 or 4 times. He found him out in the field, half froze to death originally. So my dad just reps out to the middle of the cornfield, gets the cat, brings him in. Cat takes off. Let's go up and find him again. Finally gets him in. He's in there for a few months, and he got out again. And why will he not stay with us? Are we doing something wrong? I was like, no, I think he's just a crazy cat. But he loved my dad and was the only cat I've ever seen that would climb up on him and sleep up on his chest. He loved all of his dogs. Some of his German Shepherds, I know he had Dickie. He had dogs even when he lived at home. He had his German Shepherd dogs when he went to town. Dickie. We had King and Rebel. I think we had Duke 1 and 2, and Zeb. And I'm sure that a lot of you remember those names. If you ever came out to his garage, you saw one of the dogs. He's not much for entertainment, really. He was really more of a participant than a spectator in most things. But he did enjoy some TV. He loved the Rockford Files and James Carr. I know Julie. Every day for years, he would come home, and we always ate early because he would get off from his, factory job at 3:30. We would eat at 3:38, and then he would go to his other job at Airway at 4 o'clock. Every day the Rockford Files was on. I had MASH as next, or MASH. So much MASH. And we watched a lot of MASH and Rockford Files in the afternoons. But we also watched Smokey and the Bandit. We loved Smokey and the Bandit. I think he had a little crush on Sally Field, tell the truth. He might have thought he was Burt Reynolds for a time or two, I'm not sure. Or he liked the comparison, I'll say that. He didn't mind it at all. He did love MASH. He loved that 70s show and the character Red. He found him absolutely hilarious. I think because he didn't talk to us kids that way, but maybe he wanted to, because he was always saying, I love when he tells him, you wear your ass for a hat. I said, well, you never told me that. He said, well, you mostly didn't, but I probably could have said it a time or two. Where I was like, well, fair. That's perfectly fair. But he really loved that character. He loved Oak Island, even though he was constantly furious that they never found anything. I was like, Dad, it's a show, right? And it won't happen until the end of the show. Well, my God, that's ridiculous. I just keep waiting for something to come out. But he watched it. He kept on watching it to find out. He wanted to know. Maybe now he knows where it is. Maybe he knows where the treasure is. Maybe he should tell us. He really enjoyed the show Justified. He really enjoyed Timothy Olyphant's character in that. And a lady named Marge. I said he liked her best. He said she was mean as a snake. I was like, did you like her? He was like, yeah, I really liked her. She got some stuff done. Okay. He's a big fan of John Wayne movies, all the old John Wayne movies. More commonly, he likes Steve Martin comedy and all of his silliness. I think we get that love of that silly physical comedy from my dad, most definitely. I love a good pratfall. I love a good 10-year-old boy joke. I'm right there. So we got that from him for sure. We watch Star Trek every Sunday in our house. Every Sunday. Of course, as a kid, I was like, God, but then I really liked it. I thought it was cool that he actually cared about it and wanted to see it. We also seem to be fond of the Audie Murphy movie, To Hell and Back. I believe we saw that about every other Sunday when it was on the 4 channels we had, as well as a Shirley Temple movie, and then followed by a Mom Paul Kettle movie. And that was our Sunday. Do you remember those? Always. He obviously also loved to watch racing. but he didn't really love it as much as some other people because he always wanted to participate more than watch. So he was okay with watching. So I'd say, like, who's your favorite? Who's your favorite? Well, I don't really have a favorite. Oh, really? I think you do. But you don't want to say. So he liked a lot of folks, and here lately he really enjoyed watching Kyle Larson race. For those of you in the racing thing. He raced everything, he raced hard, and he really enjoyed watching him race. And the only thing I'm sorry about is that he won't get to see him run the 500, because he was really hoping to see that, for sure. Last part here is some titles. He had a lot of different titles in his life. And just because you can claim a title doesn't mean you earned it. But here are just a few that he actually earned, I believe. He's a father. And actually, no, he was more dad than a father. I never called him father in my whole life. He said, my name is Dad. Not Ray, not Pops, Dad. If you're in trouble, like I often was, Dad. Daddy, yeah. He was the original OG girl dad in our family. And he loved having girls. Mainly because we didn't try to take his stuff. And he also knew that we might have been one of those doing a little 100-mile-an-hour police chases, if we would have been gentlemen. So I think he was glad to have 3 women that he found beautiful in his house who loved him completely. So that was a pretty good deal for him. Or at least we told him it was a good deal. He was a husband for over 40 years to my beautiful mom, Rosemary. He loved my mom madly. Boy, they sure had their rounds. They sure did. But that's the way they were. They weren't that lovey-dovey. I mean, I would have cracked up if I'd ever seen any. I'd have been like, has something happened? What's going on? But they liked each other in a way that they could push back on each other. They weren't, my mom was never that super kind, person that never said no or anything like that. I know, the thought of it. And my dad wasn't that way either, really. So they suited each other really well, because they would have got bored if they'd had anybody that was too easy. They liked the challenge, they liked the spar. It's a sparring. He was a son of Martha and Leon. He was an excellent brother to 6 siblings, most of the time, I believe. Maybe a little sketchy when he was younger, but I think he grew up. He was pretty good to everybody. He was a friend to a lot of people in here. He was a race driver, and a damn good one. I'm really proud of him for that. He was an exceptionally hard worker. The man could work me into the dust, even recently. I could never keep up with him. I would be sitting over on the side wheezing, and he's still going, hey, hand me this. I'm going to get your floor put in today. Okay, can we take a break? No, let's just get this done. Keep it going. Can I get your water? But his being an exceptionally hard worker meant that he worked hard at everything in his life. He was not really one, as I'll use his phrase, to half-ass something. And that's what he would tell us. Do it, but you better not half-ass it. I don't want to see it. Do it or don't. And that's what he did. He was really not a halfway kind of guy at any point. He was a good mechanic. He was a good neighbor to many people here in many places. A UAW committeeman, a proud member. He was a track champion at Anderson. He was the inaugural ASA Grand Mark champion, which is what this ring is here that my mother had made for him. It was a wonderful story about how that happened. It was very hard to get my dad gifts. And it was really hard to surprise him. And so when he won the championship, my mom had this made for him without his knowledge and presented it to him at the banquet. So the big time champion didn't get one, but my dad did. And my mom loved that. She was all about it because it was the talk of the banquet, and I've never seen him smile like that before. But he was so pleased that she did that for him. He really loved that. He probably won over 100 races. I have no idea. I'm not counting the ones with the cops or Uncle Gene. I'm not sure there was a real winner there, Uncle Gene. I don't know. There was some risk. Yeah. He was a provider, a very good provider for our family. He was a snowblower, a handsome young hoodlum, as you saw in the pictures. I just love those pictures so much. Sitting on the cars, got his collar all popped, looking all cool, handsome. Why did my mom go out with him? I'm still not sure. I think he charmed her a little bit because I think that she liked him quite a bit. I'm not sure why. One time, my dad left my mom out at Memo's house. I don't know where he went or what he got off doing, but he left her out there. And they didn't have a phone, and so he had to come back, and Memo Fullen had to swear that my mom actually was there in the home without him, and that she had no way to get home so she didn't get in trouble. So I don't know where he was on that. Somehow they got through. He was a gardener. He loved his garden. He loved eating everything from it. I had to remind him in the summertime to please, for the love of God, eat a piece of protein. You cannot live on peppers and cucumbers and salad. There needs to be something a little more. I know many of you probably aren't aware that he had a 70s CB radio handle. Wall banger. My mom came up with that. It's a pretty good one. I liked it. I can't really imagine him on the CB. I really don't want to think about that. Quite honestly.
Can I tell you a fast story a little bit that I heard?
Yes?
They were going somewhere to racing, and your dad was trying to get the response on the radio, and just nobody would give him a break. So then your mom grabs it, break one night, go break, go break, go break, go break. As soon as you got a woman on there,
Yeah.
they,
I know what hers was too. Gypsy Rose Lee.
I knew this was wallbanger, I didn't know.
His was Wallbanger, hers was that. Brings up a lot of things we don't need to get into. They're still my parents, and it seems that. My dad was a master moneymaker. He found a way to turn a dime into a dollar every time he moved. I have never seen anything like that in my life. Well, we can get that. We can probably get a couple of dollars. I said, for a couple of dollars. My time's worth more than a couple of dollars. He said, well, that's your problem. That's your problem right there, is what he would tell me. He was a Delco Remy. He was a GM employee for a long time, a lawn perfectionist, which is why we got so many calls from folks concerned when my dad's lawn did not look right. There were leaves everywhere. The man could not handle it. It was going to look perfect. I was like, is the lawn patrol coming by today? No. President? No. Are you getting an award today or something? No, it just needs to look nice. Why do you keep bothering me with this? Just get out there and make sure that lawn looked perfect. Made him happy. He was also a stubborn ass. I think most of you who knew him at all are quite aware of that. Couldn't tell him a thing. Couldn't tell him a thing. Tried my best. I had no leverage but guilt. And that did not work out very good. My only thing I asked him was to please stop shoveling the snow off the roof. Reasonable for a 70-something person. I said, he's like, well, I'm not going to do that. That needs to be done. I said, okay. Can you call someone and let them know you're going to do that so that you're not laying in the heat in the yard and no one knows? I said, don't you at least want someone to know to come down and check on you? Oh, it'll be fine. I told Donna. I don't think you told Donna. I think you're fibbing to me right now and you just want me to leave you alone. So, but he still continued to do all that. I could not tell him nothing. He was a pet lover, loved his pets. He was a protector of everybody that we know. He was a pretty good comedian at times. He could be very, very funny. He had a really dry sense of humor and enjoyed a lot of humor. He was unfortunately a really strong Facebook marketplace user, even though we begged him time and time again to please not let people come from Facebook to his house. I said, can you please meet them somewhere? You don't know who they are. You shouldn't just have people out to your house. Oh, it's fine. Okay. Let me get a drink of water real quick here. Oh, it tastes like he was a hero to many in this room. He was a record holder in motorsports. He was invincible. Well, I think maybe we gave him that title, that he was invincible, because I know a lot of us thought that he was, and thought that this could never happen. So maybe he wasn't invincible, but in reality, he still could win. And that's what's most important of all this.
So I just have a couple stories to share. Growing up in a racing family, even before I became part of the family 26 years ago, of course I knew who Ray was. Ray was, everybody knew. Everybody knew who he was. They would share stories of his wins, stories of his championships, and even talking about his devastating crashes. What kind of person would get in a devastating crash, be injured in the hospital, and go back and do it again as soon as they could? It's determination, stubbornness, or something else.
All three.
Over the years, I heard him and Art share stories. My father-in-law, Art, or most people know him as Gene. They would always share stories, and there was one common theme of the stories, and it was usually the need for speed. As we found out from the article. They would share the stories, and then they would end the stories with minutes of laughter and sighs, just indicating that they were thinking about the good old days. So the stories talked about their races back to Anderson from Southern Indiana. Obviously, Ray was practicing because he was running from the police, but Art would race back, going on State Road 9, breaking all kinds of speed records, obviously avoiding stop signs and such. But then, as of recently, they would talk about how things have changed and they couldn't pull that off nowadays with all the people and the traffic and all of the growth on that road. Some of the stories included shenanigans at the racetrack, working on the race cars. And Art shared with me a story the other night about one time when he was going to race himself. And he was so excited to get out on the track. He got strapped in, lined up to race, and realized he didn't have his helmet. He looked up, and here come Ray, walking down pit road with his helmet. He said, "Hey, don't you think you're gonna need this?" And then there was the time that they were racing the Redbud out of Anderson. They pulled up. They planned on stopping for the pit stop, and they were going to put STP in the car. Well, the pit stop came. Art was under the hood, putting the STP in. The car stuttered, and Ray hit the gas pedal, and let's just say that they sprayed a nice fountain of stringy gas and oil all over the windshield and probably all over Art too. That was the end of the race for that night.
Yeah.
They would share stories of their childhood home in Bromer, the junkyard, the store where everybody in town had a tab, the wagons that they would build to have the goats pull them around, because before they could drive, they had to get around somehow. The goats had to do something for them. And Aunt Linda even shared a story about his love for dogs. When he was a teenager, he purchased a dog. At first they said stray dog, but then they realized that he did purchase the dog with his own money. She doesn't know how he got the money, but with his own money, and brought the dog home grinning from ear to ear. His love for cars was unreal. It was often a mystery which car he would show up in. We would pull up in Art and Faze and be like, that's a classic car. It must be one of Ray's new ones. His love for cars tied nicely with his passion of finding the great deal. He enjoyed his time spent going to auctions, garage sales, swap meets, and making friends along the way. You'd be surprised the number of people that say that they knew him from swap meets or auctions, even a couple of the doctors at the hospital. His love for gardening came from his dad. And let's just say, Jason, the girls and I loved it when his cucumbers started coming on. I don't know why he planted so many plants, because how many cucumbers can one man actually eat? But that's okay. We were happy to take those off of his hands along with the tomatoes. During family events, reunions, holiday gatherings, you could always find him chatting it up, usually with a plate in his hand, snacking on something, or searching the dessert table for the persimmon pudding. When I hosted my first Fullen family Christmas in 2009, it ended up being a little bit of a disaster. I was very disappointed and upset. It was a snowy day. We got a lot of bad weather that year, and most of the family wasn't able to make it up due to the weather. I was bummed because I was really looking forward to being my first Christmas to host for the family. But I remember Uncle Ray did. He showed up. He was there, and he came in with a hostess gift for me with a big old smile on his face. And that gesture just warmed my heart, and it made everything better. And of course, we ate a lot of food because we had a lot of food because nobody else showed up. And he went home with lots of leftovers that day. Usually in the holidays, he would come out with Art and Faye for Thanksgiving and Christmas, and we would cook. The guys would sit at the table. Jason, Art, and Ray would sit there, and they would talk about anything from the football game, the basketball game. They talk about the 70s show, little things that Red Foreman would say. They would talk about just about anything. And then after they would get their bellies full, we'd move to the living room, and he would sit there and give love to the dogs, and we would continue just visiting and sharing stories. Each year, when he left with his bag full of leftovers and said that made him happy. He'd be good for a week or so. A couple of years ago, when Julie came home for Christmas, we mixed things up a little, and we had a white elephant game. And if I remember correctly, he was sitting right next to Kendra, and he ended up trading his girly smelling good gift for a screwdriver and scratch-off ticket that Kendra got instead. Like, the man didn't already have 100 screwdrivers, but he wanted the screwdrivers, and she got the smoking stuff. He had a soft spot for Kendra and Kylie. He always came out and spent the holidays, and even as recent as the 27th of October, when I visited him in the hospital, he told me he's still waiting on that call from Kendra to let him know when she's out on the road driving by herself, because hopefully she didn't have that full need for speed.
He didn't want to be on the road.
No, he said he'd stay home that day. He had a way of making friends everywhere, and I guess that's just the Fullen way. The thing to not know a stranger. He even befriended the nurses at the hospital the day before, or the day he was admitted to the hospital. The next day was his birthday, and he, when I went to go see him on that Friday, he showed me his birthday hat and told me about the angel food cake that the nurses gave him and sang to him for his birthday. And I've been stopped a couple times in the hallway, doctors actually saying that he was one of their favorite patients, and the office staff were very fond of him. Okay, this is probably where I'll get teary. I'm gonna miss his stories. I'm gonna miss his chuckle after he would tell me that he just didn't think he could eat one more bite. Can't eat one more bite, Jen. Sharing his most recent finds with Art, and then Art and Jason talking about his garage sale finds, swap meets, and auctions. But most of all, I'm gonna miss his love and admiration that he had for his daughters, his brothers, his sisters, and his entire family. He had many titles, many accomplishments, and memories made throughout his life. He lived each day to the fullest. May we all find peace in knowing that he is a kid with the love of his wife, Aunt Rosemary, his parents, his loved ones who have passed, and watching over us in our piece of life, continuing the legacy. Inspired by his memory to chase our dreams and appreciating the beauty of life, like the gleaming carvings. And I just have a little poem now that I've gotten my crying out of the way. A prayer for a family man with the love of racing. Ladies and gentlemen gathered here today, we come together to celebrate and mourn the life of a family man who loved cars and racing in a special way. He lived his life with a passion for speed, as his love of cars was something that he would always feed. He was a loving husband, devoted father, and cherished brother, uncle, and friend. His laughter and kindness will always be remembered until the end. He had a special connection with cars that was undeniable. The roar of the engines and the thrill of the speed made his heart excitable. As a family man, he shared his love for cars with his loved ones, teaching others about engines, tires, and all the fun. He would spend weekends at racetracks, experiencing the thrill of the drive, creating excitement in the race, creating memories that would forever thrive. He knew the importance of family and cherished every moment. His love for his spouse, daughters, and family was never dormant. He instilled in them the values of love and togetherness, creating a bond that will withstand any test. Today we gather to honor his life and all that he held dear, to remember the joy he brought, the laughter and the cheer. Though he may be gone, his legacy will live on in the hearts of those he loved and the memories that have drawn. Let us find solace in the memories we shared and celebrate the life of the man who truly cared. May his spirit find peace in his soul as his soul takes flight, and may his love for his family, cars, and racing forever shine bright. As we say our final farewell, we hold the family close in our hearts, and we find comfort in the love and support that surround us as healing starts. We will remember him as a family man who loved cars and racing, and forever cherish the moments spent with him, memories in the making. Rest in peace, Uncle Ray, in your final lap. May you find eternal joy as you take your final nap. Thank you for the love, the laughter, and the memories we've shared until we meet again in the places where races never end. Amen.
That is all that we have, and we thank you all so much for coming. But if there was anyone else who would like to speak, we certainly would welcome that. But certainly no pressure either. I know it's a little emotional situation, Thank you, everybody. You okay? You guys did look good.
Yeah, I told you.
Yeah.